All right, we'll get started here. Hello, everyone. My name's Eric with Bobcat. I'm the demo technician with Bobcat Cam. So I'm normally doing the demonstrations of the software program for any potential customers and also doing technical support. So if you have any questions with the software program, we have a technical support team more than happy to help with any questions or concerns about the software program in general to help you out getting started or anywhere along the way with using Bobcat Cam. I'm also part of training where you could schedule an hour or a 2-hour session at a time during the week, and we can log into your computer and answer any questions that you have on a specific drawing or a specific part file to help with the CAD design side of things and then the programming for the machine as well. So we'll get started. You can see my part file here in Bobcat V37. And if I could get you, maybe, if you would like to follow along with me here, if you want to open a new tab maybe and follow along, you can do that here. This is found in What's New. So if you go to the software program, go to File, and go to Help, at the very top, there's this Bobcat Cam Help, and that's where I found this page that'll open up. On the left-hand side, you'll see this What's New. You can drop that down and select What's New in Bobcat V37. This is sort of what I'm going over today. There's 130 new features here in this list of what's new, and I'm not going to go through all of them specifically. Some of them are pretty tiny things, but a lot of great things to see here and a lot of new features on this page that I'll be going over. So to start with, a couple things that I really like in the new V37 would be the first one on that list, automatically utilize high performance GPU. So what that means is, if I minimize my Bobcat here for a second on my screen, you can see my messy desktop. It's not too bad, but if I right click here on the desktop, you'll have show more options and you can select your NVIDIA control panel. Now, some customers may have an AMD graphics card as well. You would have that control panel here to select. Through that, in our older versions, you would have to go into that control panel and select Bobcat to be utilized in the better graphics card on your computer. Now in V37, we have the capability to automatically do that for you, so we don't have as many tech calls coming in to ask us, why is there slowing down of the software program and things like that. Now with Bobcat automatically being utilized with the better graphics card, you don't have as many issues there with the graphics capabilities. Next on my list, we have the picking manager. I get that a lot with customers where they ask about the picking manager. How can I hide it? How can I turn it off and make sure that it's turned off for the next time around in case we don't use that very often? I like to use it for geometry selection, chain selecting for a 3D model, like if I want to chain select the boundary around here on the bottom of the part. I can easily do that with the picking manager. But if you don't use it a whole lot, you can go to the top, say if I'm going into my Create 3D and going into Extrude Boss. You can see that the picking manager opens up right here. Now, you can turn off this auto connection, and it will turn off the picking manager so that you can individually select surface edges like this, or any wireframe that you want to select in the Extrude Boss here. And now the auto connection is unchecked, and when I go back into it, into the Extrude Boss, it is unchecked for the auto connection. And now sometimes, or usually when you start with V37, it will be somewhere out here in space, kind of in your way there. You can always drag this box and move it over to the side. And what I tend to do is I also pin it back to the side so that it doesn't show up when you're doing any of the CAD or CAM functions that include the picking manager, if you don't care to use that very much. So I used to have a lot of customers in V36 when that came out ask about that. How do I turn it off and have it stay turned off and things like that. So yeah, a lot of new features that will help us in that way. And just going down the list, you can see after automatically utilize high performance GPU. The next one down the list is default shading / wireframe quality increased. Now with the CAD tolerance levels, we used to have where it's on the lower end of the spectrum. This window here you will be able to see in your settings. If you go to File and then go to Settings, under here, under the current document, you can see the shading quality and wireframe quality here. See it a little better this way. There we go. So shading quality and wireframe quality. And now it will be higher up along that slider bar, so that the wireframe quality you can see will be a lot better in terms of the CAD tolerance, so that it looks a lot nicer on your screen. If you take a print of it, it'll look a lot cleaner there for your print. Then we go over Lua plugin. This is for anyone that is familiar with using Lua script, and we have new settings for that, being able to set up Lua scripting for your programming needs there. Next, remember picking state, picking manager. We just went through that. Next, the shortcuts are alphabetized. So I'm going to go back into Bobcat. I'm going to go to File and go to Settings here. And then under Customize Shortcuts, you can see all of them are now alphabetized. That makes it a lot easier for us to find what we're looking for. I want to go right to the line function that I normally use, and I can create a shortcut for the line function, let's say Control L. And you'll see that it's currently assigned to nothing. So if I assign that, the only time I'm using Control L on my keyboard will be going into the line function. There's some newer features in here that are able to be used by shortcuts. Like if you normally open up NC Editor a whole lot, you can just go maybe like Control N for NC Editor, and it will allow you to open it up with a shortcut key like that. Some other ones I know are post and save as, and simulate, which would be really helpful if you're simulating, going into simulation, going out of simulation. That is found simulation, but then I know post and save as are really good ones too. If you're needing to post G code and then save it, you can easily save the G code very quickly with a shortcut key. And then next we have new commands available. Just went through that. Next set, if you're going through the list here, following along with me, renaming user templates. You can rename a user template after you have named it here. It's convenient. I like this one, open options for STL files. For some of you customers that are using 3D printers, if you are opening a file as an STL, maybe from Thingiverse and websites like that, open source websites for your 3D printing needs, you can open up that STL file, do any kind of manipulation that you're able to with STL files. When you're opening it, sometimes it changes from millimeter to inches and vice versa. So you have the selection here to change that scaling up or scale it down. So sometimes when you open up a part file and it is huge, 25 times larger than you're expecting, you can just change it to millimeter there, and it will change the scaling for you automatically, so you don't have to scale it down manually. That can be nice. Updated context menu. So when we right-click anywhere in the CAD workspace, I go back to Bobcat, go into my part file here with the assembly with my Kurt Weiss, soft jaws, my part file here. I can go anywhere here in the CAD workspace and right click, and you can see that it's a little different here. You've got your OK, your cancel, you've got your select mode here, which is also at the top right here. You've got your selection mask option. And then you have some CAD functions built in by default, normally using point, line, arc, spline, and some utilities to translate and rotate the model here. You can also go down to the very bottom and select Customize. And now you can add, let's say if I'm making a lot of arcs, I can add that in to my context menu. So when I right click, it's going to be right down at the bottom, and I can go in and create circles very easily with just a right click there and arc. Next, we go to automated license deactivation during uninstallation. That can be really useful. You know, sometimes customers, when you go in, go to File, and go to Transfer License, you have to remove the license from this computer to go to another computer to install and register it. Now, when you're uninstalling, it will ask you to transfer the license automatically so that you don't have to call us up and get that transferred over for you manually there. Now, just as another side note too with V37, I know we get a lot of customers asking, hey, I just installed V37, why is it not automatically registered from 36 to 37, just sort of updating that way. There are separate licenses for you between 36 and 37. And that can be really helpful if you want to have V36 on one computer. You can go to a different computer and use V37 on a different computer and register it with a different license ID and password that we give you on your invoice, so that you can use Bobcat on multiple computers without having to purchase the multiple licenses there. You can use 36 and 37. However, Bobcat CAM, just like most CAD and CAM software programs, are not backwards compatible. So if you are saving the file in if you're saving a Bobcat file in 37, you won't be able to open it in version 36 and older. You can, however, save it as a generic part file type. If I go here to File, Open, you can save it as a DXF or a DWG drawing to open it in an older Bobcat version. You could save a 3D model as a step or an IGES model, and you could save it as an STL file, and then you'd be able to open it in an older version. You're just not able to open native Bobcat files, so you won't be able to program everything in 37 for your milling or your lathe or wire machine unit and things like that, and then open it in 36. You would have to, maybe do it all over again if you needed to. If you had another person with you that is using version 36, each of you guys are designing, you would have to send it over as a step file, as a 3D model, and then you could program it again to 36, but then you could send it over to 37 if you needed to. Next down in the list, we got some Bob Art features. We have the ability to rename sculpting features. That can be helpful if you're doing multiple sculpting functions in Bob Art and trying to distinguish what sculpting feature it is, so that you know which one to modify in the future. Next, we've got some CAD features. Tangent, radius. That could be nice, if you needed to make an arc that's tangent to two entities, and then you can change the radius of that. Keep subtracted body. That can be useful. So I'm going to sort of make an example of that. If we've got a cube like this, and then I make an additional solid model that's inside of the cube here, this is going to be found under the Boolean subtract if I want to subtract this area of the cylinder away from this area of the cube. It's going to be found in Create 3D, and under Boolean, there's this drop down for add, subtract, and intersect. And so if I go to subtract, I'm subtracting the main solid would be the cube. I want to keep the cube here. And then I'm subtracting the cylinder from the cube. Now this checkbox in between the two geometry selections are keep subtracted geometry. And you can see the preview. That's what I'll be left with for my solid model for the cube, but I'll also be able to keep the cylinder for any later assembly making and CAD, things like that. Next, really helpful one, updated measure to flow. So the workflow with that is updated, and I really like that one, where you can go to the top, go to evaluate. You've got measure one, some of these measure functions, like if you wanted to select this edge of the solid model, over here in the measure entity at the top right, you can see the total length of the line, what layer it's on, things like that. You can also pick the solid and get the area and the volume of the solid here as well. Now with measure two, I could pick maybe from this point here on the solid to this point over across it here. And I can see what the total distance is from point to point there. What's really nice is I can change my selection here. So the workflow will be selection mode, reference, or chain. So I think if I click on the chain option there, yes, that's perfect. So, okay, so if I go into my evaluate measure two, this chain option is where I can click on a point, like this point right here, and then say I want to click on this bottom point next. Okay, cool, this is 2 inches in height. I want to make sure that the 2 inches in height are on over here on the right hand side. Now you'll see over on the left hand side, it automatically goes back to the first entity. Before in the older versions, it was stuck on this second entity here. Customers weren't really liking that because it's like, okay, I'm assuming I'm reselecting this top one first. And so I'm picking over here. And that just throws off the whole workflow because now it's like, okay, now I have my first selection again that I have to redefine because I just redefined my second selection. So it was a little cumbersome to, to go into the data entry box here, highlight first entity again to make sure that I'm reselecting my first entity first and then reselecting my second entity. You can see that it automatically just goes back to first entity. So I can just click on first, click on second, click on first, and click on second so that I don't have to go back into the data entry box and reselect it. It looks like a small one, but if you're doing a lot of measurement functions like that, it can really be helpful that it's the right workflow, in my opinion at least. Next one down, advanced holes arc selection. So it doesn't have to be an extrude cut hole already in the solid model. It could be an arc. Let's say we've got our solid model like this here. And we've got a hole, oops. And we've got a hole that's already created in 2D. Let's say we got a 1/2 inch diameter hole right in the center. I can go to create 3D and go to advanced holes, and I can select that drawing, and now I can define the diameter. If there was a thread, I can define the thread. I can define the chamfer on top, and I can also define a counterbore with it as well. So, and I can do all of that with the with a 2D drawing and it's sort of extrude cutting down instead of having to already create the hole there in the solid model. Next, the one that I really like too is rotate from geometry center. So if I have my solid model again here and I move it out somewhere out here in space, and I'm trying to rotate it around right there with the geometry center of it to be rotated around from that point in space. Previously, if I went to rotate and selected the 3D model, you can see it starts at the CAD origin location, but then we also have geometry center right here. And you can see it selects it right there, and then when I rotate it around 45 degrees, it rotates it around from that amount. Previously, it started with the origin location here. So then it would sort of rotate from this location and rotate it around 45. And that's not what we want. We want it to stay at its position. So I just have to click geometry center. In the past, we would have to know what that point was and type it in here for our rotation center. Now we can just pick geometry center there and make things a little bit easier, especially when you've got an assembly like you see here in the page that we're looking at. Rotate from geometry center. If you've got a bunch of vices, a bunch of parts, and you're trying to rotate them all, you can rotate them all from the center of the whole assembly there. All right, yeah, I'm gonna stop at that point and take a break, see what you guys have for questions. And I'll be able to answer any questions that we have, and then we'll keep going through the list and answer, go through some more of the neat features there in V37. Let's see. Han says, not doing anything, no video or audio. Let me know if you can see the video again now, Hans. Should be good to go. My preview is looking good. So let me know if you can't see me still or hear me. Andrew used to be able to select points from this before now. Okay, let me get back to my list here. Yeah, I suppose you were able to select points before this. Yeah, you had the rotate 3D option also. You could create a line and pick a rotation axis, but then you'd have to create a rotation axis right through the center. So it could be cumbersome. So that way the rotation center to rotate around is really helpful there. So we'll go down in the list here if you want to follow along. Again, here it is found. If you go to the top, go to File, go to Help, and then it's Bobcat Cam Help. That's the document we're looking at so that we can see all the new features right here. And it's found if you go to the chapters, it's what's new in V37 here. So next, Contextual Help Bar. That can be pretty useful. So if we're going into any of the CAD functions, we go to create 3D. Say when I'm creating the extrude boss for my solid block here again, I can hover over any of the boxes here, click on it, and it will actually tell me, okay, what are you, it'll give me an explanation of what I'm looking to do exactly, and can really help me with what I'm looking for, like along Z-axis. If I hover over it long enough, it'll tell me what I'm looking at for, like, you can see what I'm looking at, how it's extruding a certain direction along Z or in reference to the geometry there. Views to active UCS by default. So that would be our user coordinate system. So under our user coordinate system here on the bottom right, you can see there's a top UCS that I'm sketching from. If I want to sketch from the front view or sketch from the side, I can do that. And whatever UCS I'm in, if I'm on some sort of angled surface there, coordinate system, I can look at it from a top view, and the top view will be in reference to the UCS that I'm on automatically. So that can be pretty useful. Offset on both sides, that can be all right. Going to create 2D, and that's going to be under offset. I'm selecting my geometry here. And you have on the left side, on the right side of the offset, and we also have both sides. So if you want to offset on both of them, you've got sharp corners. So instead of going around the corners, you can make them sharp. And you can set the distance you're offsetting, maybe just 1/8 of an inch. You can offset from your original geometry on both the inside and the outside if you needed to do that for any engraving or maybe additional profile passes. You can select all this geometry from your offset. I'm going to scroll down a couple. We'll keep scrolling down to Next is axis and Gnomon display toggle. I'll show you where we're at here. So a couple down from offset. Get to some of the important ones here. Axis and Gnomon display toggle. So this has to do with the icons on the bottom of our page of Bobcat. At the very bottom right, you can see the options for units, going from millimeter to inches. To the left of that, you can select what the geometry is, if it's a solid line that you're sketching, if you're sketching dashed lines for construction geometry maybe, and your color for your entities. Next, you can set your snap increment. So when I'm sketching a rectangle here, for example, every 16th of an inch it'll move over with this snap increment. If I change it to 1, it'll move over every 1 inch to place it exactly where I want in my drawing there. Then we'll look at some of the other buttons that are added here now as well. The axis is the X and Y blue lines here, horizontal and vertical. If I want to turn that off, that is going to be right here, show or hide XY axis, and Gnomon is the red arrow and yellow arrow for our X and Y axis there. So we can turn it off. That can be helpful if we want to go to File, go to Print, and then when I'm printing my sketch here, it will not print the X and Y axis and the X and Y axis arrow, the Gnomon there. So you'll turn off the grid very easily now if you want to create prints and print something off. You could print it to a printer, and you can also go to File, Print, and under Print Setup, you can save it as a PDF file. You can print to a PDF file as well. But now you can see with the grid on, it will print that XY grid there. Some customers don't want that in their print. Most customers, I would say, don't want that in the print. When you print it as a PDF or print it on a sheet there. Then we'll scroll to the next one down. Create UCS based on machine setup. So if we are going around here, we create a new job. We go to the top, go to CAM, start a new job. It'll be a milling job type here. I go to my stock wizard. I can define this 3D model as my workpiece. I can define the stock that we're starting with. And then our last page here is our machine setup. This is where we are defining our G54 work offset. I can highlight origin here and maybe flip the part over and set this as my new G54 work offset. Flip the Z-axis, so now we've got the there we go. So now we can flip the Z-axis so that it's pointed up, and we could drill on the bottom side of the part or do a profile around it from the bottom, things like that. And now we can save this as a UCS so we can draw from it as well. So once I click OK, I can then right-click on the machine setup one, and it is down towards the bottom here. It's under additional functions and create UCS from machine setup. Now you'll see that machine setup one here, and I am sketching from that location. And maybe if I want to draw a hole to be drilled from this position, things like that can be an easy reference to draw from if I'm going to be programming on that side or any of the other sides for a new machine setup there. Layer deletion update. So now we can delete layers from this page on the right-hand side. And even if there is any geometry deleted from the CAD history that's still standing, you can still delete the layer there. Next, we're getting into the CAM features. So we just went through the new features in CAD. Now we'll be going through some of the milling, turning features that are newer in the version 37. And so the next one, tool library improvements. So you can create multiple tool libraries now. So when you go into a new job, and I'll just start this over again here. There we go. So start a new job again. I go to the top, go to cam, go to new job. And when I'm selecting the milling job type, selecting my machine that I'm using for the milling machine here, and we have a template option. Our last option here is tool library. So if I had a second tool library with some specific drills, specific end mills that I normally use, I can set different tool libraries depending on what milling machine I'm using with the tools for that certain machine. Things like that can be really useful. Next, tool library workflow update. So if I'm going to the tool library page, if I'm creating a new tool library, we can see that here by going to the top, going to cam, and going to tool library. And you can see I can right click here and create a new tool library. Make this a little smaller here on my different screen. I can add a new tool. So just right click in this window, add a new one. You can see over here on the right hand side, you can change the tool parameters and save it. And then that way you can have a new tool library that you can use for a different machine. And the workflow on it is a little different, where you can save it, and you can also go to any different category, go from your tool library here, and drag and drop it into any of these tool libraries here for an end mill rough or an end mill finish, those kinds of options there. So then we scroll down and we have a warning to save the tool library. If we have made modifications and cancel out, it'll say, hold on, do you want to save the changes that you've made before you close out of it? So yes, I'm going to save this new tool library with this 1/2 inch end mill in here. Tool crib improvements. If we go into a new job and we right click on the machine setup one to do a new milling operation, I can go into mill 2 axis. I can go to the tool page for this profile rough, for example, and go to the tool crib. I can then, I can then go to my tool crib up at the top and my tool library down at the bottom, where I can drag and drop a tool into the tool crib. Now, when I'm using this, when I'm using this tool and not using the 1/2 inch end mill anymore, it will remove that tool from the tool crib so that it will just keep the tools that I'm utilizing there. Now you can see over here on the right hand corner, you can see F for fit all, R to reset view, zoom in, zoom out. You can move the mouse wheel to rotate for your view of the tool, so you can see the geometry of the tool there. And also, you can see sort of, this is something that I've come across in the past, is that with the resolution of the screen that I'm using here, I'm using a couple monitors, so sometimes the resolution is different between monitors, and you can see that the minimize button and the X out button or the OK button down at the bottom of the tool library is not showing. I actually ran into this before with a customer. Found out you can just go here to moving the size of the window here, and it will up. Oh, yeah, there you go. That was going to make a liar out of me. So once I change the size of it, you can see it brings up the minimize, the maximize, and I can also make it smaller here for next time, and I can actually OK or cancel out of the tool crib there. So a couple new features with the tool crib that are newer, so that you don't have to, you don't have to use, or you don't have to see any of the unused tools. You have this button, remove all unused tools, to remove them. And then you can also change the resolution of this window here if the resolution of the screen you're working on is a little different than the others. Next, remember tool crib size. Yes, so as I just mentioned, once I've changed the size of it, then it will go back to how I had it there. That's convenient. So then I don't have to resize it every time. Next one down, we're looking at merge options for tool crib import. So you can merge different tools here, and you can create the different tool sizes. Anyways, yeah. So just trying to read the comments here. I'll get to any questions that you have. I'll take a break here after this last one here, and answer any questions you guys have in the comment section. Merge options for tool crib import. So once you merge any of the geometry in for the tool crib, you can import it as a drawing file and bring it in that way. I think I'll finish off with this tool crib selection here. Updated tool crib selection. So just as I mentioned before there, as we're in the tool crib, just like in the tool library, we can modify tools here. Let's say this is 0320 for the tool diameter size. Then I cancel out of it. It'll ask me, once I check the box and things like that, I can, once I hit cancel, it will ask, do you want to save changes? Or no, sorry, this is the tool library in the tool crib. Do you want to save changes or discard the changes? So you have settings to save or not save. So we'll get into the tool count. We'll get into the tool tree and the operation tree next. I'm going to check the comment section, see if you guys have any questions as we take a break here. And you might be about halfway done with the list of the new features. I know there's some smaller ones towards the end, but we've gotten through a lot of the really helpful ones that'll save you time in the software, the new settings in V37 here. Just check in the comment section, see if you guys have any questions before we move forward here. Oh, Andrew, thank you for mentioning that. With the advanced holes, used to be points only. Now you can select arcs as well for the advanced hole making. That makes sense. Yeah, and then you can create your 3D geometry, your counterbore, your thread, your hole, all of those settings in the advanced holes from any arcs now as well. Eric, let me know what you're asking there. You're saying facing. I thought you could make it just keep dropping down. Is that are you mentioning facing for 2-axis milling and doing multiple depths of cut? You're saying now it picks up and starts over. Just to answer your question there with facing, when we go into facing, we select our tool, maybe a little bit smaller than a 32nd inch end mill here. Let's do a larger tool here, facing tool. I'm going to sort by diameter here in the tool library. Select a larger face mill here. Oops. And let's go with 2-inch insert face mill. Remove the rest of the unused tools there. And bring that in. And then our next page here, we have zig, which is one directional cutting. Will come up and move back over, or zigzag back and forth. And then our next setting also is multiple steps down and setting a depth of cut if you want to do multiple passes. So those are the two options that I know of for facing. I say now it picks up and starts over. How do I change it? Here, let me read your next comments there, Eric, and then I'll move forward after this. If you have any questions, go to Cam, then Tool Library. You say go to cam, then tool library. Here, I'll follow along with what you're having the question on. Cam, tool library, right click on tool library. You want to set your default. Set as default. Yeah, you got a default tool library, so that can be helpful. Yeah, great way of mentioning that as well. So with the tool library, you can make your own tool library here, make a couple here, make a 1/2 inch tool, make a 1/4 inch tool. And if those are the tools that you're normally using, you can set that as a default so that you've got a short list of tools that you normally use for a certain machine, and then you can go to different machines. That's a good point there. We go back to facing here. David was having a question for facing. Check minimize retracts, which is right here. Check minimize retracts for facing to plunge down at the end of each pass. Yeah, so instead, and that's minimize retracts is also in the profile cutting that's been in there for a while as well to minimize retracts. So you can see these are linking moves. If it goes down, comes across, it would lift up, go across, and plunge back down, and then do the next profile cut. With the minimize retracts, it will wrap it across, or actually, sorry, with minimize retracts just checked, it will come down and then still link across and then profile cut around instead of lifting up and going to the clearance plane each time. Then link with rapid, it will come out, wrap it across, come back in so it doesn't lift up and so it doesn't feed over. It'll wrap it over with that one. So yeah, that's a newer option in the facing section there. It's also in the pocket and profile already, but we added it into the facing operation as well. That's a good point. Some newer features in 37 that can be really helpful there. So next we'll get into the tool count in tool tree. So we're going to be looking at the newer operation tree and tool tree here. Back in the older versions, I think from 34 and older, you would right click on the milling job and you would have this machining order option, the second one down. That's where you can change the order of operations for your milling job here. Let's say I did a facing operation on this one. Let's see. Make sure I got a good tool for that. Okay, cool. Got a facing operation and we've got a profile rough and profile finish, we'll say. And I need my geometry to be selected there. All right, so we've got a facing and then a profile rough and a profile finish. And so when I go down to the bottom, we have this operations tab. This operations tab has replaced the machining order. And so you can see the different milling operations. It starts with tool 2 for the facing operation, then tool 3 for the profile rough, then tool 4 for the profile finish. Up at the top in this operations tree, you can highlight an operation and move it up or down in your operation, order of operations there. And then over to the very far left, you've got optimization type. So you can sort by feature. By feature, we'll sort all these milling operations based on how you have it sorted in the cam tree. So it would do facing, then profile rough, and profile finish. Let's say we've done a profile rough and a profile finish, and then we'll do another profile rough and profile finish, just for the sake of setting things up here. You know, we've got, yeah, cool. So we've got tool 2, we've got tool 3, tool 4, tool 3, and tool 4. So there's a lot of tool changes in between these profile rough and profile finish operations. To optimize this under the optimization type, instead of by feature, we have by tool. So it'll do the profile roughing tools with tool 3 first, and then it'll come back with the profile finish passes with tool 4. So That's usually how it's sorted in the order of operations here. So if you want to check next time and make sure everything is sorted the way you want it, you can sort it by limiting tool changes, or if you want it exactly how you sorted it here in the CAM tree, you can go to the operations tree and sort it by feature so that it is facing, profile rough, profile finish, then profile rough and profile finish if that's what you need to set up there. Next, we'll get into the tool tree. So here on this page, what's new in V37, we have show tool count in tool tree. So that is from the operations tab down at the bottom. And these icons down at the very bottom of the operation tree, this is the operation tree here. And this icon is for the tool tree. And this will tell you what tool is being used and what operations are being used for each tool. So you can see just the facing is used for tool 2. There's a profile rough and a second profile rough for tool 3, and then two profile finish operations for the tool 4. And it will show you the tool count. So you can see up at the top, operation count total, tool used, there we go, tools used 3. So it gives you a tool count and an operation count of what you've computed there in the CAM tree. That can be convenient in the tool tree. Also in the tool tree, say if tool number 4 that finish end mill broke on you, you can right click on the tool here and you can replace it right here and change the tool number or change the specific tool in here. Let's change it to an 1/8 inch end mill. And then all of the operations below that tool, you can see has that sort of error sign there. You can right click and you can recompute the tool path for each of the features. So you don't have to go back into the CAM tree, find where the tool is, change the tool out. You can go right here to the tool tree, change the tool out, and then recompute the operations that that tool is being utilized. So you don't have to search for all of them there in the CAM tree. Let's see, we'll get to some of the more important features here, newer features in the V37. I'm going to skip down to some of the other settings that can be pretty useful here. And scroll down past a few of them here. Yeah, we're going to get to the milling specifically. So Mill Express is where we're at now. Under milling, you can select a work offset pattern and hole recognition. Those are found under the milling tab now. So before you were having to go into the CAM tree, you're having to right click on machine setup 1, and you would find work offset pattern and hole recognition here. You can also find them as icons up at the top here to go to hole recognition. So you can select a solid model and it'll pick up all of the holes for you on the solid model and will tell you anything that's been, they have to be 3D holes here. So if we want to see that here, for example, we can, there we go. So if we want to see a hole like this here, just to show you hole recognition real quick, it's a really useful tool. The hole recognition has been in the software program for a while, but just to be able to go right here to milling, and go to hole feature recognition, you can select a solid model and you can click OK, and it will pick up all of the hole sizes for you here. It will tell you the diameter of each one and whether you want to do a tapping or counterbore operation for any of the holes for you there. And then it will compute all of the drilling operations for you down below the machine setup. So you've got those icons there. A work offset pattern is if you want to copy all of these features and basically paste it as G55, 56, and so on for multiple work offsets as well. So I got to scroll back down my list here that I've got. So from the work offset pattern and hole recognition added to the cam ribbon, you can scroll down. And I'm going to keep going here. Yeah, some of these are sort of smaller things here for the milling. We'll get to the laser, plasma, and waterjet. I just added, but sorry about that. Holes, and then laser, plasma, waterjet jobs. You can set a default machining strategy. So in 37, we streamlined the workflow for users operating laser, plasma, and waterjet. You can create default machining strategies. So if you go here, I know a lot of the laser, plasma, waterjet users were using, you could use templates so that you didn't have to right-click on machine setup 1, go to mill 2-axis, and under the machining strategy, you would have to delete out that profile rough every time so that you're left with a profile finish. Just do one pass around for laser, plasma, and waterjet. Now we have the laser, plasma, and waterjet template right here, which starts with the profile finish. So you don't have to delete that out every time or make job templates for that every time after that. So streamlined a lot of things for Mill Express, for laser, plasma, waterjet. We're getting to the into the milling functionality here for 3-axis. I'm going to scroll down here and show you where I'm at. So we're down to Mill 3-axis Pro. And you can use a custom shape for a tool path. That's a custom shape for your tool. So if you are in 3-axis milling now, we went from mill 2-axis now to mill 3-axis. And you can go here to set up, it's under the Pro. So one of the advanced roughs here, for example. You can select adaptive roughing and things like that. You go into your tool page and you can select a custom geometry. So when you're selecting a tool here, there we go. So down at the bottom, you can assign tool geometry. And so when you're adding a tool from the tool library here, under end mill, you can go to assign tool geometry, and that is how you can create a custom shape for your tool, and you can use it for an advanced rough now, or maybe like an advanced finish to follow along with like a T-cutter, things like that along sidewalls. You can create custom geometry for your tool by going to a new file, creating a drawing here, and basically you're just creating the profile of the tool. So from the center of the origin of CAD geometry, you can go out and create the size of the tool, create a couple different shapes for your outline of the tool. Any solid line here is going to be cutting part of the tool, and any non-cutting part of the tool, be it the non-cutting part above it, you can change it as a dash line to see in your tool page. Yeah, thank you, Eric, for asking those questions. I'll get back to it and answer anything that you have in there for the recording of our webinar today, in case you had any more questions there. So we've got our tool here. We go to CAM, go to Tool Library, and I can go to Mill. I can add a new tool up at the top. and then I can go down and assign tool geometry. I would select this profile of the tool here, and then you can see that geometry of the tool can be utilized for 3-axis roughing and 3-axis pro operations, other finish operations as well. That can be really useful for 3-axis pro. Let's see, scrolling down, some of the other features there with 3-axis milling. Yeah, so as I said, with the pencil and the Z-level finish, you can use a custom geometry for that as well. I'm getting into some of maybe like the 3-axis premium, the 4-axis stuff, and things like that we can get into. But some of them are a little more technical. For what we're going over today, we're just going over some of the basic version 37 features that can be really useful. Some down at the bottom there of that list are things like using barrel tools, which are a newer tool option here. You can see in the tool library. So we have some of these corner round, single point threads, V-tool, tapered tools. And then down at the bottom here, we have these barrel mill tools that can be used for the 3-axis premium tool paths and the 4-axis tool paths as well, to follow along with the side of the tool with this barrel mill tool that can be utilized in our newer versions as well. Yeah, we're getting down to the bottom of the list there that I was going over for the new features in V37. So I'm going to check the comments here, see if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns. Let me know. More than happy to answer anything else that you saw in that list or anything else you had questions about in the new V37. Okay, so yeah, this is sort of where I'm opening it up to like a question and answer. Anything that you had questions in V37 here specifically, or anything that that you had questions on in general with Bobcat, I can open it up for the last bit of the webinar here to answer anything that you guys have. More than happy to answer anything when it comes to milling, when it comes to turning, or anything else in the software program like with CAD. David, for facing, it would be nice if the toolpath could be automatically centered to the part instead of being off to one side. A feature request. Yeah, that's a good comment there. Facing, I thought with adaptive, you might have been able to start at the center, but maybe not. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the adaptive and facing, it's a high-speed machining operation. You can face from the outside and work your way into the center. But yeah, it's a good suggestion if you want to start from the center, work your way out. You could effectively use a pocket operation, and essentially use that as a facing operation to start from the center and work your way out if that's what you're trying to do. But to add that in facing, that would be a good setting there. John, when will new cam features be available in Rhino version? Rhino, we're ending at version 3 for Bobcam for Rhino. So if you're looking to get updated to all of these new features, I would suggest using version 37. You could always import the Rhino CAD files into V37, utilize all the new features, and be able to set that up that way. Chris, the toolpath offset percentage can control your step over so you can center the facing on the part. Yes, so over on the right-hand side, the step over percentage. So 50% of the tool, I'm using a 2-inch cutter, so it'd be stepping over 1 inch with the step over amount. It says I'm having an issue in V36 that I was hoping the update would correct. Cannot use simulation every time I start simulation, the whole application crashes on you. I'll probably need to contact you later. Yeah, please contact us at support. At the very top of this comment section, you'll be able to see our support phone number and our email address. If you're still having any crashing issues in the newest update of V36, or once you get into V37 and test out simulation, you're still having any simulation issues, please let us know. Call us at that phone number. Again, it's 727-489-0003. And we'd be more than happy to log into your computer and troubleshoot some issues. If you're having any crashing issues, we can take a look at it and answer anything that you've got there. You know, there's some troubleshooting options we can set up, like making sure Bobcat 36 is running in the dedicated graphics card so that the graphics capabilities are up to speed for Bobcat so that it doesn't crash on your computer and on your graphics card there. Yeah, with simulation, if you're running into any slowing down or crashing, especially in V36, I would recommend, and I'll go through the workflow with you here with V36. Now it's automatic in V37. You'd want to close out of Bobcat specifically so that these changes are being made. You go to your desktop, right click, and you would go to show more options. You would go to NVIDIA control panel. It takes a second to open up the window here for your NVIDIA control panel. This is for your older versions of Bobcat, where you can go to Manage 3D Settings over here on the left, go to Program Settings here in the center, and then go to Add. And you want to select Bobcat V36 or any older version in this list here. Select Add Selected Program. Let's say I did V35. Add Selected Program, and then hit Apply down at the bottom. Then you can open up V36 or an older software program and check your simulation, see if you're getting any slowing down or anything like that. And if you're still having issues, call us back and we can log in and help you out with anything with the software program with that tech support line, because we're more than happy to help you out. Any troubleshooting issues, see what else is going on there. Yeah, thank you, Bill, for viewing the webinar today. You know, we went through some of the newer features here in V37 that can be really useful. Also, yeah, going through some of the newer features in V37 and being able to a lot to do with CAD. I think a lot of the newer features, especially, are with CAD manipulation, being able to create your drawings and your 3D models a lot more easily, to be able to streamline that process. And then getting into some of the features there in milling, especially, to be able to help with that and streamline that process. I'll always mention in each version, we also streamline the toolpath algorithms and calculations. So every time you calculate and compute a new toolpath, it's a little bit faster between each version and a little bit more efficient. Also, when you go into simulation, it's an updated simulation. You can open it in a separate window now. That's a newer feature in V36. You can go to File, go to Settings, and then under CAM over on the left side there, you can go to Simulation window, can be in a separate window now. So if you have a second monitor, you can go into your simulation. It'll open up in a separate window. So you can put your simulation on a second monitor there, and you can even multitask here by simulating on one screen. Then if something doesn't look right, you can go here into Bobcat, you can modify the geometry, modify the depth of cut. Maybe this is too far down. We only want to go down 10 thou, down onto the stock there, down onto the stock here, and then we can go into simulation. We can hit restart, and it resets the simulation for you, so you don't have to close out of simulation and reopen it every time. A separate window for simulation can save you time in that regard too. But yeah, I'm going to look at your guys' comments, see if you guys have any more comments before we close out of the webinar today. I want to thank you guys all for viewing the new features for V37 webinar today. We have webinars every other Wednesday. So the next one here is going to be on the 25th of this month. And I believe that's going to be on 3-axis milling. But we tend to send you guys an email to see if you guys have any anything in particular that you want to see, so that we make sure that these webinars are tailored to exactly what you want to see. We just went through some of the new features in V37, but then we tend to look at specific things like in 3-axis milling. Sometimes we look at lathes specifically and things like that, so that we do exactly what you want to look at. Yeah, thank you guys for your time today, viewing the webinar today. And if you guys have any more questions, willing to answer anything in the next few minutes here. But again, I want to thank you guys for viewing the webinar today on some of the new tips and tricks on V37, and hope to see you in the next webinar. Again, that's going to be on the 25th of this month, going through some 3-axis milling for another webinar to view some ways to make your 3-axis milling programming a little more efficient that way. I want to thank you guys again for the second time. Thank you for viewing the webinar today on the new features of V37, and hope to see you in the next webinar. Thank you guys, and have a great day.